Hey, everybody. Motion is the lotion. What does that even mean? How does moving throughout the day help us? Welcome to Men Talking Mindfulness.
Damn, wrong one.
We're working here, guys. Here it comes. Here it comes.
Raw, uncut, and unapologetic. Welcome to Men Talking Mindfulness.
You gotta love the uncut piece, right? So welcome back, everyone. Hey, we're gonna be talking about motion is lotion, and we're gonna do that with Doctor of Physical Therapy and a returnee, a two-time returnee. This is their third episode, Dr. Theresa Larson. Hey, great to have you back, Dr. T, as we call her. She likes to call herself T-Pain. She always says other people call her that. I'm gonna start calling her that. Hey, thanks for being here and helping us understand why, staying active throughout your day. And we're not just talking about getting into the gym. We're talking about really staying active throughout your day outside of the gym. It's like Will talks about in yoga, what happens after the mat or off the mat, what happens outside of the gym. So let's talk about how that's beneficial for our minds, our bodies, and our overall health. And just some quick announcements. We got one announcement. Simply text MTM to 33777 to see everything that we're doing. And now you can even help us to further our mission and further the reach of the show by sponsoring the show. And you can find out about that by texting, again, MTM to 33777. So now that all said, Will, my brother from another mother, good to see you, man. How are you? And let's get into our one breath grounding practice.
All right, let's do it. And also, hey, mentalkingmindfulness.com for more information. And with that, we're going to do our one breath grounding practice. Let's start exhaling all your breath out. Push it all the way out. Pull your navel in. Get really empty. Feel a little uncomfortable for a moment. And then take a big, giant, satisfying inhale. Keep feeling it. Keep feeling it. A little bit more. Hold for a moment. And let it go. Drop all the way out that breath. Let it go. Let it go. Let it go. And here we are. Here we are. All right. Hey, thanks for everyone being here, for tuning in, sharing the podcast, helping us grow and becoming more mindful. Let's jump right in. John, I'll kick it over to you. And hey, Dr. T, why don't we say hello to you? Hi, Dr. T. How are you? Good to have you back on the show.
I'm excited to be here. I'm here with my special friend underneath the desk whose name is Dragon. She's keeping me company too. So I'm excied to be here, guys.
She doesn't just have any friend. That is a dog. She doesn't have one of her friends literally.
Like, what's going on underneath the desk?
Oh my! What kind of show is this?
I don't know.
She got some unplanned movement going on.
Oh, John.
This is Dragon. This is Dragon.
There's Dragon with her cone, the cone of shame, man. So, well, hey, if this is any indication of how the show is going to go, we're going to have a lot of fun. And, I've actually seen Dr. T every week for the past 3 weeks. We worked together, last week with Will in North Carolina with our good friends from HMI. And then Theresa and I worked here in Colorado together at CBI. So anyhow, let's get into the show. So, you hear a lot of people talking about their workout of the day, and you hear people talking about, well, I'm training for a marathon, so I ran 5K today, I ran 10K yesterday, and everything. And I'm not knocking exercise. Obviously, I'm a big exercise proponent. But what happens to our bodies, even if we are exercising regularly in the gym, outside of the gym, but then the rest of the time we sit in our office kind of hunched over a computer, hunched over a keyboard, staring at Zoom calls back to back to back. What is actually happening to our bodies, our minds, and everything else?
Well, it's counteracting what we do in the gym. That 1 hour in the gym is nice, right? But what matters the most is the other 23 hours that we're doing outside of that 1 hour in the gym. Our body atrophies. Our quality of life atrophies as well. So sitting is one of the worst things we can do for our body. I think the stats are up to 8 in 10 adults will have low back pain. And that is because it's not a matter of if, it's when, because we have such a sedentary culture. And the thing is, well, it may be okay for people when they're young to do that, like crush it in the gym 1 or 2 hours and then sit all day. As you age, it's going to catch up to you. It just is. And so movement this is my new favorite term, is the panacea for our health. Like, it is really the cure-all preventative thing for our health. We can't control everything, but movement is the best way it can help us. Like, this unplanned movement that we do outside of the gym, right, is the best way we can keep our quality of life at bay, as well as improve our longevity.
Nice. And I recently sent you guys an article. I don't know if you guys got a chance to read it, but I think it was written by Michael Easter, who we're all fans of. But there's a study of a group, I want to say it was somewhere in Africa, who they're also very sedentary, but they are living long, healthy lives. And the difference is the chair. Like, these folks are sitting, holding themselves upright. They're moving around and they're sitting in uncomfortable positions, but they're still sedentary. But even that, it's not even really movement, but it is using your muscles to sit up and stay straight. And that in and of itself is enough to increase their health and their wellness and their longevity. So if you're listening to the show and you think that we're here to tell you, hey, you need to get in the gym and then you need to go walk 55,000 steps and do 10,000 push-ups, that's not what we're here to do. We're here to show you how the unplanned movement is going to make a change. So much so that I went out and I bought this walking
gadget guy
treadmill. I know, gadget guy.
Gadget guy.
You'll be able to tell here in a second that I'm actually walking at my desk. I'm walking at my desk because the unplanned movement is so good for us. Like, bebopping up and down.
It's all good.
Let
let me just say something right there. So this came up. So we have our meditation course running right now at Men Talking Mindfulness. We'll offer another one in the summertime. So we have a good group of 11 guys that have dropped in, and we're heading into our third week. And one thing I mentioned during the first week of the meditation is sitting with a dignified spine, right? So sitting up, so not slouching, not like kind of, like lying down or getting into that kind of hunch, desk posture that we take on way too much throughout the day, but sitting up tall, dignified. What does that really mean? So one of the guys in our group, he's like, this dignified spine thing is really like kind of hard. He goes, do I need to do more ab work or this or that? And I was like, well, if you can't sit up straight on your own, that's a pretty good indicator that your body needs some strength somewhere. Right. So I love that what you're saying in that earlier what you mentioned, that article. It's just like even actively trying to sit up on your own volition instead of like leaning in a chair or slouching in some way, or like kind of leaning into a desk or something that or onto your keyboard. How that even just that simple movement right there, or that simple activity and that simple kind of what you're trying to do is sitting up is actually very beneficial for yourself. So let's so what about that, Dr. T? In your expert opinion?
First of all, being able to sit on the ground for at least 30 minutes a day on the ground is really powerful. So that is the thing, like in that article, which I still need to read, John, but I've read articles that are similar. I think I couldn't open it because I was on the airplane. That's why.
No judgment, T.
Anyway, but I was sitting in my airplane seat.
I was flying. I was flying. I couldn't get to the file. I was flying. I'm just kidding.
But the idea of sitting on the ground, getting on the ground without the need for a ton of assistance, right? Like if you can just use one hand or one knee or nothing to get on the ground, very helpful, right? That helps tell us a lot about your hip strength and coordination. But then sitting on the ground for 30 minutes at a time, we could do it watching TV, right? It's great for passive hip mobility, knee flexion, things that we're not getting when we sit in a regular chair. We don't get enough hip flexion. That's why, right, our toilet seats aren't very high. That's why squatty potties are so powerful. And I don't have an affiliate with squatty potty, but I should, because they're just like amazing. They get your hips in a good position to eliminate all the stuff. But I'm, that's a way to infuse unplanned movement into your day, is think about what 30-minute time frame could you be on the ground, playing with your dog, playing with your kids, sitting and watching TV, right? And trying to not use a backrest too, doing it, just sitting upright. And it's actually just the practice of sitting upright and breathing effectively, your abdominal muscles are impacted by your diaphragm too. So part of your abdominal muscles is your diaphragm and your pelvic floor. So just by putting yourself in a more upright position, straight spine, if you want to know what a dignified position looks like and you don't know, because that's some questions I get yourself against the wall, but back of your shoulders and neck, and make sure the back of your head, shoulders, and butt touch the wall. So that's you're in alignment there. Now hold that position when you're sitting up. If you just work on breathing, Will and John, and everyone listening, just work on deep breathing in that position, you'll start to strengthen the abdominal muscles and optimize the muscles around your spine. But it's going to take some effort. So just think 30 minutes, where can you get some playtime, sit time on the ground? But then getting up, see if you can also not use assistance, not use your hands or knees, or just use one hand or one knee to get up.
You always amaze me when you do that. It's a really
important drill.
Yeah, I can't do that yet, but I love how you're able to do that whenever we get together and you demonstrate that. That's pretty powerful. And you mentioned being playful, and
yes.
I want to talk about unplanned movement for us as the adults here in the room, if you will, but also for the adults who are listening, but also unplanned movement for kids, right? I mean, you see them getting a lot of unplanned movement, right? I've got a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, and soon to be 3-year-old, and obviously they're running around all the time, and that's kind of how we're meant to be, right? We, as the parents, though, we're like, hey, you need to stop, you need to slow down, because eventually that kind of starts to wear on us. But kids, when they go to school, then they sit all day. And sometimes it's difficult when they get home to get them moving. And I don't know if you guys remember the Xbox Connect, the thing that would like video you and you could move around and play games. Well, I just literally yesterday, because of this episode, I got my kids, not the Xbox Connect, I don't think they make that anymore, but it's this thing called the Next, N-E-X Playground, Next Playground. And they have to move in order to play these video games, so I don't have them sitting.
Fun.
And I was like, well, this is a great way to get them moving when they get home, even when it's crappy weather outside. So if you're looking for unplanned movement, maybe not even for your kids, maybe for yourself. And I don't have an affiliate with Next Playground either. I just thought it was a cool thing to get you moving, and there are things that are out there. But that all said, oh, sorry, Will, you got something, brother.
No, yeah. So why don't we just get a baseline here and really to define what we're talking about, unplanned movement, and why it's important for our overall health and well-being.
So, okay, yeah, that's a good, why are we here and what's the problem it's going to solve? So unplanned movement. Okay, so if you think about it, you're sleeping 8 hours, hopefully. Some of you I know are not. You're exercising, yes or no, 1 hour. So there's about 12 to 15 hours in there where you're working, you're at home. And that's where you want to get unplanned movement, is not the planned exercise. Like I'm going to the Zumba class at 9 a.m. or I'm going to my CrossFit class at noon, or I'm going to my running club at 5 p.m. It's all the movement that you get in your day. So if a simple way to look at it is if you look at your tracker on your watch, smartwatch, or if you don't have a tracker on your watch, how much walking you get in a day, how much squatting, how many times are you going to the bathroom? Because you're doing a squat when you go to the toilet, right? How much gardening are you getting in? All the things that you're not necessarily planning is formalized exercise. That's what I'm talking about here. And it is actually what matters the most to our quality of life. So strengthening our body and getting our heart rate up is important, but if we just sit all day long, it's very counterintuitive to what we're building there, building strength and building our heart strength, because our body becomes the positions we hold, right? So if we're always looking for the comfortable chairs and sitting a lot, well, we're going to become a pretty comfortable looking human being, okay?
Which is not good.
Which is not good, right? We don't. And your hips are going to be tight, and your low back's going to be tight, and your neck's going to ache. And maybe not when you're in your 20s, but as you get into your 30s and 40s and 50s, it will.
Unless you're Will.
So
Will is super limber.
Unless you're Will, because Will lives we all live the unplanned movement life, right? And it's a concept that I think we've just formalized it in the last few years of like, what does it look like? The 23 hours when I worked for CrossFit, this came up a lot actually. People cared so much about what they were doing in the gym and how much they lifted, that they sat all day at work and they stressed about other, it's like, you gotta, so I mean, it started making me think like, okay, let's talk about the other things you're doing outside of this. How calm are you? How mindful are you in the way you go about your life? Are you getting more movement in your day? Like every 25 minutes, are you getting up and moving? Are you walking your kids to school? Or are you just sitting all day? Because if you are, it's counteracting everything you're doing in the gym.
Right.
And so, but I think as human beings, that may all be great and good, but here's the problem it's going to solve for you. Because what it's going to do for you is increase your creativity. It's going to increase your productivity and performance by up to 30%. We just listened to a video of this with children in school. If children just moved 10 to 20 minutes before a test, it will increase their performance by 30%. That's at least a letter grade.
Wow.
Right? So
and that's kids.
Think about that. That's kids. And what about we sit? That's when kids start to change their breathing pattern. We go from optimal diaphragmatic breathing to more shallow vertical breathing, which is really like up and down with our chest, very shallow when we go to school. We need to get our kids moving more. Like our whole culture is centered around sitting and listening, sitting and working. And so to infuse that into the day for kids is important. Teachers need to know this. But as adults, like think about your like I've been on a lot of calls with executives. The amount of lethargy and stress I see is there. If they got, that's why we're talking is they're like, I want more of this. How can I get up and get my body and my team moving? Because we need to be innovative. We need to be creative. We need to be better than the person next to us. Okay, well, you're not going to do that by doing what you always done. People always think if I'm going to improve my company, I'm going to focus on enterprise and team level. Well, what about the individual level of performance? The individual, like what they're doing at work and what they're doing at home or what they're not doing. And that often includes how they take care of themselves. So when companies actually pay attention to that, not just throw EAP programs at people, but like real live experiences for people to like understand how to infuse this and create behavior change, that's when the change happens. But it does improve the problem we're solving is that we're improving retention because people that provide this type of training to organizations retain people, but people will be more productive, 60% more creative, 30% improvement in performance in general with just a little bit of effort. And this effort takes this kind of movement I'm talking about. Ideally, right, just moving around your house is great, but if you want to improve if you need to think through a problem or get through a test or a big meeting, walk around at a moderate speed so you get a little bit of sweat on. That's it. All you need to do is walk at a moderate speed to get a little bit of sweat going, which I can do easily here now that it's getting warm in Colorado.
Right.
Walk uphill for like 50 meters and I'm already sweating. That gets my brain going. That gets my body going. And it creates that motion lotion, but not for our bodies, but just it's for our bodies and our brains. It creates lubrication to the joints, right? It helps the connective tissue strengthen, the bones strengthen. Stress is strength. We want stress on our body, which is walking. It gets our hips into extension. It challenges our feet. It gets our brains moving, right? That pattern interrupt that a lot of cognitive behavioral therapists talk about, like if you're going through a trigger, get up and move, create a pattern interrupt to what you're experiencing. That's what movement can do for you. And it also can prevent most systemic diseases like diabetes. So there's 4 of them that at the age of 50 and above start killing us off. And I'm not going to say that lightly. It just does. It does. And so it's cardiovascular disease, neurodegenerative disease, cerebral vascular disease, and cancer. So think of cerebral vascular as stroke, right? But we can prevent the majority of those cases by getting this planned and unplanned movement into our day.
Right on. Right. So for unplanned movement, I know we've mentioned, a couple of examples already. I'm going to ask you a question, then we're going to hold off. What are the top 5 examples of this unplanned movement that people can often overlook in their lives. And what I want you to think about that, T. But before you answer, I just want to give a shout out to our MTM Forever sponsor. A special thank you to Karambit Tactical Knives, found exclusively at karambit.com. These knives are more than just tools. They're a testament to precision and reliability. And as a small business owned by a fellow Navy SEAL veteran, every Karambit knife is rigorously tested and approved by the best. Whether for self-defense or everyday carry, Karambit knives are the ultimate choice, boasting over 50 brands and models to suit your needs. So thank you to Karambit Tactical Knives for becoming a sponsor of MTM. And if you're listening and you would like to further our mission and further the show, because it does take money to make the show, please consider sponsoring us. Text MTM to 33777. All right, now let's come back to that question.
Yeah, but Karambit is KARAMBIT.com, Karambit.com, just so you get it clear. Thank you. Okay, let's continue. What was that question, John?
Also, I have a question about the knives. Do you test the knives by shaving off the hair on your arms? Is that how you know?
I haven't, but I'm sure that you can initially. I know plenty of people who have cut themselves with these knives because they are plenty sharp.
Yeah.
And if you guys don't know what she's referring to with that, in SEAL training, we have to keep our knives super sharp. And the inspection for the knife is literally the instructors pull your knife out of your sheath and they run it down your arm. And if it shaves the hair on your arm, then you pass. Otherwise, you fail the inspection. So, and that's a sense of movement in itself. So let's come back. You know, the top 5 examples of unplanned movement that people often overlook in their daily lives.
Well, I actually have 6. I added a bonus, okay, because I was like, there's so many good ones. But these are the top 6. So the first one is walking, right? Getting 8,000 to 12,000 steps in. Now, let me give you some examples of how to do that. Walk your dog, walk your kids, right? Walk your kids to school, park further away, take the stairs versus the escalator or the elevator. Walk around your house when you're on a call. I get off Zoom calls all the time and talk on the phone. You ask yourself, how can you get more movement in? But 8,000 to 12,000 steps. What does that do for you? Motion lotion to the hips. Gets those hips into extension, flexion, challenges the feet, right? Strengthens the body, the musculoskeletal system. Actually, it helps all 9 energy systems. So that's the first one. The second one is stand more. So this is a really interesting statistic. If you stand 8 hours a day at your workstation with some shifting, right? I would shift your hips a little bit, like John. Yeah, just do this.
I'm standing right now, and I'm standing on one.
So, So if you shift your hips a little bit, but you stand 8 hours a day and do that for 365 days. A colleague of ours did some research around this. You're burning roughly 300 more calories a day standing than sitting. So that means over the course of a year, it's equivalent to running 38 marathons. Why?
Wow.
Yeah. So the average marathon runner burns 100 calories per mile, right? So the amount more calories you burn by standing 8 hours a day for 365 days is equivalent to the amount of calories you burn in 38 marathons. So just saying that, like, start to build towards standing more during your workday, because you're going to burn more calories. When it's not going to challenge your heart the same way as running a marathon, right? But I'm talking like calories burned.
Calories. And isn't it something like 500 calories extra burned a day equals a pound a week lost?
Yeah.
So, I mean, theoretically, it's close to a pound a week, maybe 0.8 pounds or something. So over a year, you could lose like 40 pounds.
Absolutely. So standing, and you don't want to just, like anything else, jump into standing all day if you're sitting all day. Start to stand an hour a day, and then the next week a half hour, and add a half hour each week, so you incrementally progress to standing all 8 hours. But again, even standing 8 hours, I know I'm only on number 2 right now, but standing 8 hours, you still want to get movement in there. Like every 25 minutes, take a seat for a couple minutes, walk around, right? You don't want to just be sedentary and standing either. The third thing is roll around. So I know this sounds funny, but like when you're on your bed or on the ground, you get on the ground, literally rolling like a log, like letting yourself gently roll left to right, is super therapeutic for your spine and nourishing
Wow.
for your spine. So oftentimes when I was teaching classes, I would have the group roll together in unison. I would start people laying face up, take their right leg, roll it over top, and then eventually start to gently roll their spine and their arms over so they land on their stomach, and then roll, backwards. Like if you're on your stomach, take your left leg, start to roll it over, and then think about incrementally rolling, not just like a big old lump of a log, but like legs to spine to neck and arms. It's actually fun. So get your kid, if you got kids, do it. And if you have animals, they'll be all over you. But it's really good and nourishing for your spine. The fourth thing is squatting. So you go to the toilet, you sit in a chair, or you're squatting down to lift something up. So get a few more squats in. We want to get it. Roughly we squat maybe 25 times a day. Chair, if you think about the amount of time you squat to a chair, get up, get something to eat, squat back down to a chair. But squatting is so healthy for your hips, your lower extremity, for your spine. And squatting actually improves the strength of your glutes, which will improve the ability to combat low back pain and dysfunction. So yeah, John's doing it right now. Good job, John. So he's squatting. Exactly.
I'm sweating.
John's talking to the person under his desk.
Okay. So squatting is so good. So what you want to do, let's just talk about a good squat right here, everyone. So put your feet shoulder width apart. I'm attached to these earbuds, but these not earbuds, but these headphones. Put your feet shoulder width apart and toes slightly turned out. And then think of your feet as on dinner plates. Like really get those arches to be active. Drive your butt slightly back, knees out, and go down as low as you can go. Okay? And then come back up. Now you're going to feel it in your quads. You're going to feel it in your glutes. If you feel it in your knees, think about really taking on a nice hip hinge. So really shoving those hips back further. If you don't feel it in your knees, just hips slightly back, knees out. And what the knees out position does is you'll notice that it activates the hip joint and the glutes, right? Versus just driving your knees straight forward. By driving your knees slightly out, it really creates activation in your glutes, which is the muscle that protects the lower back. So just changing up your movement a little bit actually can help eliminate knee pain, low back pain, and issues with your feet. But oftentimes in the medical space, PTs, my own colleagues and my own medical providers will just jump right into the symptoms of the joint versus looking at the movement quality itself. So you want to fix the movement quality. And so hopefully that little squat exercise will help some of you change up your squat routine.
I've always
for a little.
Go ahead, Will.
No, for a little inspiration as far as looking at longevity. My dad's 85 now. He has had really chronic back problems for a while. And what you say as far as the health and strength of your squat is really indicative to the relationship to your low back. My dad's back is horrible. He doesn't have a lot of strength in his trunk, like in his butt, his glutes, and his quads as well. I mean, he actually walks he's hunched over. This is, he's and it's really disheartening to see my dad suffer like this, but also to see him kind of hang and stand like that. So I'm saying this. It's this is what happens if you don't do squats, if you don't take on these little unplanned movements throughout your day, because then you can end up turning 85, or this has been happening for my dad for 10 years, his low back. And I love my dad, and I'm sorry if I'm kind of calling him out a little bit, but this is just what happens if you don't take these opportunities throughout your day and kind of not just listen to the wisdom that Theresa is saying, but also bring it into your life, because it really does make a big difference, and you can live a more comfortable and more pain-free life in the long run if you just take a little these every 25 minutes, every 30 minutes, just doing a little bit of movement. But I think also the squats, it's not just enough to walk, it sounds like, but actually getting finding a deeper level of strength in your quads and your pelvis and in your body that's just going to help you, attain a greater sense of alignment in your body, but also keep that lotion going, which keeps the lights on up in your head too.
Well, the other part of squatting like that is it also helps with elimination. So
there you go.
Your digestive system. So you'll have better elimination experiences in the bathroom. It'll be just better overall. It's like a massage for the viscera in your abdominal area, which is your liver, your stomach, like all of those things. I actually did an internship in Austria with an osteopathic doctor, and it was awesome because I learned about all of the weird stuff that you get the benefit from movement. And it was like how to massage your liver and your stomach and all the things but it is true, and you want to get it as deep of a squat as you can go. So if you have a hard time squatting, I just say work on it. Don't let anybody tell you to not squat, because that is a primal movement you have to do. And the problem that our older folks can get into is that they're in pain and they're weak, right? And so then that's the excuse to not do it. It's like, well, I'm weak and in pain, so I can't do it. But the thing is that movement, improving it while it's uncomfortable, can help them get out of pain, and have a more quality of life. So it is important to think about how do you want to live the last 10 years of your life, that last decade, and start acting on that now.
Yeah, real quick.
And also what kind of I'm sorry, go ahead, John.
Yeah, so the piece with the pain, you got to pick your pain, right? Pick your hard. Like I feel like, it hurts a little bit to squat, but when I'm doing it regularly, when I'm walking regularly, when I'm doing these unplanned movements, I feel better in my body. It's easier to walk up the stairs at my house. It's easier to play with my kids. And then Will, you mentioned, your dad has been struggling with this pain in his lower back for the last 10 years and he's 85. Well, we're also talking about things that can hit us way earlier than that, right? These pains in our knees, pains in our hips. And my dad, he's also, he's 82, still gets on his bike. He and my mom both get on their bikes, riding, 50-mile bikes. And my dad always said this thing, did you stop exercising because you got old? Or did you get old because you stopped exercising?
There you go.
And I think that's spot on.
Absolutely. And that's a great mindset to have. We need to just keep moving. That's living. And so that leads me to the last two things. Okay, because I told you I would give you 6. I like to over deliver. So the other one is balancing on one leg. So when you walk more, you're in the single leg balance anyway, for a brief moment, right? When you think of like how we walk as human beings, Homo sapiens, it's like you're in a single leg balance for a little bit. And everyone can attest to like if their toe hurts or their hip hurts, how it affects their walking. So but working on single leg balance, literally just standing there, if you're on a phone call and keeping your eyes open or brushing your teeth. I know, John, you like to do that one where you brush your teeth on one leg. Switch it up, but build up a goal of doing 30 seconds at a time on each leg each day, and even challenge yourself to try and eyes closed, because we use our vision, unless we're legally blind, for so much balance. And what we want to do is train our vestibular system, which definitely atrophies without usage as we age, that affects our balance and fall and become a fall risk, is balance with our eyes closed, not next to anything sharp. And maybe not brushing your teeth unless you're really talented. But, stand in a corner, close your eyes, and just lift a leg up and see how you feel the ground and how you experience that. It's actually really healthy for you, and it is hard. I have a hard time with it.
I'm doing it right now. And
I'm just going to jump in. So I teach a lot, I teach a lot of movement and yoga, and people come in regardless of the age. And I always do balancing poses, like balancing on one leg, because of it's very humbling to see. It's like, oh my God, I can't, so having a 20, 30, 40-year-old who can't balance on one leg, it's like, I'm glad it's almost a little embarrassing, because you should be able to do that simple movement or that simple stillness on one leg, all the way, your whole life. But what I offer, and what I offer anybody that's wanting to do this one leg thing, it's just like, it's okay. Stand next to a wall, use the wall, so you really are able to stand up on your own and find that balance. But it takes
Yes,
time, and like all these
it does.
movements, just like our whole philosophy here on the show, and also the work that we do with these companies, it's just like, start with one thing, start basic, start with the baby, like the first baby step, and then watch, and you keep accessing that baby step, and watch how you begin to grow, with more physical and more mental health, just by taking little steps every day, little actions. Last one, Dr. T.
Yeah, so the last one is, we actually spoke about it at the beginning, of sitting on the ground and playing.
Yeah.
So sitting on the ground, playing, but just getting on and off the ground, right? But hanging out there for 30 minutes is really powerful. And as you shared in the beginning, your body is active when it's doing that, right? It's working. The muscles are working to stay upright versus, again, kind of letting ourselves get into the comfort crisis of needing to be in the cushy chairs, the cushy shoes. That is actually what's weakening us.
All of it. So much. Our minds, our society, ourselves, right? Even our group think. Like, think about it. If like we're more healthy physically and mentally at the office, and and instead of being about like getting the best of the next person next to you, it's like when we are more physically in our body, right? We light up parts of our brain that actually help us to communicate more effectively with other people at the office, instead of sitting in this hunched posture, right? And developing more stress and anxiety because we're not moving our body. We're not, bringing that lotion, which helps to lubricate not just ourselves physically, but also lubricates ourselves mentally. We might be better at asking for help, or asking better questions, or, collaborating and finding solutions more effectively because, we're in our biology instead of like ignoring it.
Yes, and the benefit of it too, because we know our world is our country, I should say, is chronically underslept. As we just, Dr. Marissa, who does a lot of the sleep stuff for us, has shared, like, the more movement you get in a day and the more functional you are, the more tired you're going to be at the end of the day, so you'll sleep better. Versus being so sedentary, you end up staying awake on devices and substances and whatever, and then it's just this vicious cycle of needing caffeine to get you awake, and then you're sitting all day, and then maybe you go to the gym and crush it until you're like 45, and then you blow out your back every week, or every month, and you're like, well, I'm done. And then this is a very likely cycle that happens to people. And so that's the wonderful thing too, is it helps you feel better. It'll help gate pain, which means kind of curb the effects. So pain is very subjective to each of us. It's very real, but it's very subjective. But pain oftentimes is the thing that can hold us back from wanting or thinking we should move more. And a lot of it's because our medical culture has scared us into thinking, oh my God, you have this diagnosis, you can't do anything. I mean, to the T, I am a medical provider, and I go to my healthcare provider, which is an average place, really, and they'll give me a diagnosis right away without even doing a full evaluation. And I'm like, you do not know me. You haven't tested me enough to know. And so I call them on it, but a lot of people won't, right? Or don't know better. And so it scares them and they stop. And so that's the other part, is like, we need to help people take responsibility. That's what we're doing here, is we're helping people take responsibility for their actions, literally, but then also challenging our culture, our companies, and our medical system to be better.
Right. Yeah. I wish they would ask when you go to the doctor, it's like, how are you eating? How are you sleeping? How much movement are you getting every day? And they just like, doctors I've gone to, they like, how much water are you drinking, right? How much junk food you're eating on a regular basis, right? How much you're sitting versus being active throughout the day. Instead, they just like, here's your heart rate, here's your blood pressure. Oh yeah, your knee is working because I did that dumbass test, which doesn't really make a difference to your overall health. So it's like, I wish they were asking more of those kind of questions, and you can prevent a lot of hospital visits just by doing this unplanned movement every day.
It is an unfortunate, situation, and I know Dr. T felt this when she was in the healthcare industry as a typical doctor of physical therapy. That there's only so much time in the day, so I do feel for those in our healthcare industry. I mean, my wife was in it, And you have to see so many patients in a day. You're only given 15-20 minutes with each patient, so it's hard to get all that in. So maybe it's not necessarily the doctors, the healthcare providers, but it's the healthcare industry as a whole that needs to change so that we can in fact take better care of ourselves and take better care of one another.
But they're also profiting off of our lethargy, off of our laziness.
Sure.
They're profiting.
That's true.
I mean, 100%. So it's almost like,
Big Pharma is.
Big Pharma is. Like I had this student of mine. He was a little older now, and he was transitioning out of not the military, but out of the government and into a regular life. And he was going through all these classes. And one thing that they told him is stay out of the chair of death. When you just get retired and you sit and you read the paper, you watch TV, and like you consume whatever content on your phone in the same chair every day. And I love that they call it the chair of death. And it's not just for old people. It's like if you sit 8-10 hours a day, like that is like slowly atrophying your mind and your body. Another thing that like we should mention here is like we don't move, that stress and anxiety from whatever stimulus and triggers are coming through the emails and social media or pressures of trying to do our job sits in our body, sits in our muscles, sits in our organs. And if we don't do this unplanned movement, get up and move, then it just stays there and it becomes more chronic and it can create more problems later as well. I mean, there's so many benefits to doing this.
Well, there's no other drug that will improve your health like movement. No other drug can improve.
Love that.
Yeah, there's no other drug that can improve the connective tissue strength, bone strength, heart strength, digestive strength. All 9 systems all at once. No other drug can touch it. And it is your physical capacity is the telltale sign of aging. When you infuse, there is such thing as biological age, such as chronological age, right? And I'm fascinated with epigenetics and genomics. Like I feel like if I ever go get a PhD, when all the time I have later on, my own personal PhD, I'm going to have the PhD of Movement RX. It's going to be on epigenetics or genomics because it's like the idea that your biological age is not your chronological age, right? Your chronological age is your age, like what age you are, but your biological age is like it could be younger or it could be older than what you are based on how you live. And the one thing that can really turn that around is you can't necessarily, if let's say you're 45 and you have a biological age of 40, well, good. You're not going to necessarily make it go to 38, but you can stop the progression of it. So you can go to 48 and still be at a biological age of 40, 41, right? So you can slow the progression of the biological aging. But the only way to do that is through movement. Like meditation and sleep is all very important too. We spend so much time, our bodies are meant to move, right? And our movement impacts. And I always have a hard time telling people exactly where to start because I always want them to start with one thing. And I usually start with sleep, but like I sometimes switch to movement because I'm like, well, if you get more movement in your day, it's going to improve your mood and can help your quality of sleep. So maybe start with movement first, then sleep. I guess, it's up to the person, right? What's your magic wand? If you feel sleep is really jacked, you start there. But for the majority of us, 70% of Americans don't get enough exercise at all. So that tells you a lot. Like we need to move more. I mean, we've had people in trainings who are like, I hope to get to 2,000 steps. I'm like, yes, that's a good start, but you need to get to 8,000 to 12,000.
But even those who are exercising regularly, how many of them are getting enough unplanned movement through the day?
Right.
It's probably even higher than that. It's probably like 80 or 90% of the people in the States.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
An interesting correlation that I think it's like 70% of our population in the United States is on one prescription drug too. Maybe we can get off some of those drugs with a little more movement. I'm just making a random claim here, but it's like, like if you look at like, a sedentary life of people and the chronic disease and the mental health problems and the physical problems, right, you will see a correlation of increasing in those problems due to the decreasing of movement. Like,
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I just want to put
absolutely.
out a quick disclaimer there.
yeah,
We're not doctors, right? So if you're on some type
but
of
no,
medicine,
he is
don't stop taking it. Well, yeah,
right,
Dr. T is a doctor,
right.
I'm
but
not a medical.
don't stop taking
Yeah,
that medicine and then
Yeah.
say, hey, John and
right,
Will and Teresa told me to move better and come off my medicine. Talk
right.
to your doctor and find
Talk
out
to your
that.
Yes,
doctor,
absolutely.
and
But
also,
know
hey,
that
if
there,
if your doctor isn't encouraging movement, maybe switch doctors. I have a doctor that lives like we're working my family. The guy's been part of our family for a long time, but now the guy's over 300 pounds. Like, and I'm like, whoa. I mean, are you really a good health professional when you're completely unhealthy yourself? Yeah, just putting it out there.
Yeah,
But
some of the worst the worst people the people in the worst health are some of those in the healthcare industry, and my wife will admit that.
yeah,
Because they're so busy taking care of others, they
that's
forget to
true.
take care of themselves.
True.
Again, it is the nature of the work, unfortunately. Sometimes, I
Yeah.
mean,
it
obviously, there's
is.
plenty of healthcare professionals like Dr. T right here who takes good care of
Yeah.
herself. So.
And, yeah.
It's I think I know that with healthcare providers too, with taking on everyone else's stuff, right? My dad, being that he was a Catholic priest, took on a lot of people's stuff, just like a medical doctor would, but in a different way.
Hmm.
And it can be emotionally taxing. And I think the rate of overeating,
Mm,
there's eating disorders like Overeaters Anonymous, overeating disorder. There's a lot of different kinds of eating disorders, but I think that's the way a lot of people can kind of push down their emotions. And I think healthcare providers, we are good at giving people help, but not asking for help ourselves.
Right.
So that's the other component to this. I mean, that's probably another podcast. But the point is as a medical provider, there are good ones out there. But regardless of your medical provider, I'm keeping mine. I don't think they're amazing, but I know to advocate for myself. I know how to, and I know what to ask for. I know the tests I need to be proactive about my health and certain things. So that's you all listening now know how to be proactive about your health. 70% of your health is in how you stay healthy is preventable. Like you can prevent. It's in your control, I should say. So things like the cardiovascular disease, cerebral vascular disease, cancer, the majority of those are preventable through your lifestyle. Not all, right? We can't control our genetics or our age or things like that, but we can control how we live our lives. And one really quick and easy way to change the quality of our life is movement.
Yeah, and some of the physical challenges there that you just mentioned that can be improved, but some of the mental health challenges that we've seen, like Will was talking about, a lot of us could come off our medicines. T, I know you display this chart of this study that was done where there were people that were depressed and they were given antidepressants. They exercised, and then there was a group that exercised and had the antidepressants, and they all improved. But then after, I don't know what it was, 6 months, the people who relapsed the most were the people who were on the antidepressants, and the people who relapsed the least were the people who just continually moved, exercised. So, I mean, that shows, yes, it helps with the physical fitness, but it also helps with the mental fitness.
It does. So this is the thing. Like I kind of am that group, I guess, if you say so that group was with mild to moderate depressive symptoms, and it was done by a professor at Yale. And so they had a group that was exercise only, medication and exercise, Zoloft it was, and then just medication. And so the group that relapsed the least after 6 months was significantly exercise. Now, I have been in all three of those groups. I have been someone with mild to moderate depression who's only taken medication and not moved. I have been someone who's exercised and taken medication, as well as someone who's just exercised. And I'll say this, exercise hands down. And I'm an N of one, I'm telling myself, because I don't actually do physical research. I read the research. It's significant. Like if I don't exercise, and I'm not talking, if I don't move, I'll just say that if I don't move, it does affect my mental well-being. So I've been sick quite a bit, sadly, due to little boy stuff, whatever, family, life, travel, just had colds, just gunk. So I'm not exercising. I'm not strength training. I'm not running right now, but I am moving. I'm walking. I'm getting my squats in. I'm doing some simple stretches, and it's done it's done wonders on my mental health. And so I want people to know that, medication is powerful when needed. But don't forget about the lifestyle things you can still do, even if you're on medication. Don't let that medication be your only source of healing. Make sure you seek help. Right. Make sure you move. Make sure you meditate. Practice mindfulness. Right? Yeah. Like, don't let that be an excuse.
And the beauty of the mindfulness, the movement, I know we talk about the all or nothing mentality quite often, is that people think, well, I have to go and crush myself in the gym for an hour and a half, and I have to do all this. And I know Will wants to ask a question about Tabatas. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing thing, and the movement can be a piece there. So I'll turn it over to Will to talk about.
Yeah. I mean, I thought what we did on this offsite last week with this company that we're working with, and wink, wink, we can work with your company too. Just let us know. And what Dr. T was teaching this group was like a 7-minute Tabata. Right. And so describe what the Tabata is and what the recipe is. And then,
I love Tabatas. And I'm not going to tell you the acronym for it right now. But it's because I don't even know what the Tabata means. But what it looks like in terms of a workout is 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off. And so I like that for periods of like, I don't know what to do, or I'm traveling and I only have so much time. I literally give myself 7 minutes, and I know I'm probably going to do more, and my heart rate is going to be up after that 7 minutes, even if I just did 7 minutes. But it's just 20 seconds of an exercise, usually a calisthenic of some kind. I mean, especially if you're in a hotel room, it's 20 seconds of an exercise, 10 seconds of rest, done 7 minutes straight. And I usually pick 2 exercises to make it simple. Pick an upper body and a lower body. So I'll do squats. Sometimes they're jump squats. I'll do push-ups, or if I'm near a pull-up bar, I'll do pull-ups. Right? I can't do a ton of pull-ups in 20 seconds, but hey, I'm hanging there. So, or do sit-ups. It's just something. Right. And what it does is, I mean, you guys felt it. It's like just some simple movement gets blood flowing, and you probably felt the need. You get this high from the exercise. There's a such thing as runner's high. Oh yeah. Right? There's exercise high. Just by putting yourself in the position and doing it, everyone can commit to 7 minutes. I mean, it's an easy time frame. You get your movement in, and then what it does is it gets your heart rate going for a few more hours. More likely, because you did that, you're going to be more active anyway, doing more unplanned movements, because you feel good because you just did it. I have a friend of mine. I'll give an example. He was like, because everyone thinks like, oh yeah, people who are, athletes or already healthy like to exercise. Well, shoot, I had a guy who was a CIA agent. He was also in the Army too. Went into the CIA, lost his health basically, gained a bunch of weight, super sedentary, and it was hard for him to get back because he felt like he needed to go back to doing an hour of working out a day or more, or training and crushing his soul like he did in the Army. Or you probably felt like that in the SEAL teams. You have a certain expectation of how you train, and then you get into real life and you're like, this isn't really real life. I've got 30 minutes or an hour. And I told him, just 7 minutes, man. Just do 7 minutes. Get on your bike and bike for 7 minutes straight, or do a Tabata for 7 minutes. And that's what got me through the first couple of years of pregnancy too, after having a kid and getting active again. Just making a goal of 7 minutes. I didn't want to go back to a gym. I actually didn't really want to be around people yet, like a lot of people. And so the 7 minutes really helped. Yeah. And so what you'll find is you'll do more though.
Right. Well, it's something I love. It's a tiny little container. It's just 7 minutes, right? It has a recipe. So if like you're doing the upper body, lower body, you just talked about. So tell me if this is correct. So I'm doing 20 seconds of squats, as many as I can. Yep. Right. And then taking a 10-second rest. In that rest, 10 seconds, I would just take a couple breaths, breathe for those 10 seconds, only going to be like 2 or 3 breaths. And then I would go upper body for 20, 10 rest, and then just repeat throughout that 7 minutes. And then from that container, like, I mean, I'm just even seeing it and thinking about it, but like I do a lot of active movement throughout the rest of the day. It's just like I feel more alive. I feel more inspired. And therefore I'm going to be more inspired, inclined to do it again the next day just because it works. I mean, it's like, you know, when we get in our body rewards the mind, right? And we feel better, and we feel more clarity, we feel more calm, we feel more confident, we feel more courageous. All these wonderful things when we get in and stay in our biology. Like,
and imagine if companies just did like a 4-minute Tabata before a meeting, right? Or just have people doing something. I mean, they'd have to advise people on clothing attire, but you know, other than that, I mean, but that's why I wear stretchy pants. Like, I'm always ready. I'm always ready. But the thing I want to tell people is it's actually the 20 seconds, right? Don't necessarily worry about how many you do, but the quality you do. So maybe you are really good at squats, so do a crap ton of squats.
We're okay here, T.
Okay, good. But it's raw and cut. Yes. Okay. So then or you can do one squat in 20 seconds. Try that. Try one squat for 20 seconds. That's freaking hard.
Yeah.
Right. Or like switch it up a little bit. Like have fun with it. Get a little crazy. It's like, that's what's fun about Tabatas. I'm like, oh, I'm going to do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Put on some good music, you know, Temptation bundle, because I need to really amp myself up with some like Metallica.
Yes.
I don't know.
No Leaf Clover.
I actually like 80s music more than Metallica. But you know, whatever's your jam. Whatever your jam is.
Well, you know, the Tabata, you mentioned not being able to do a whole lot of pull-ups in those Tabata sets, if you will. But Will, I know you're a big fan, and you've told me sometimes just hanging is really good for your body, right? We talked about
great
for your shoulders.
It is so hard, but it also increases your strength, but it's also good for your flexibility, mobility.
Great for your shoulders. Yeah. Great for those shoulders. I mean, just think about how much, like, you know, we all, like, when we hunch over the technology, right? Closing our elbows, right? We're closing our shoulder gaps. We're rounding through the upper back and the neck, right? When we hang, right, we're opening up the forearms, we're opening up the elbows, opening up the shoulders, like lengthening our middle back just by hanging, and developing the necessary strength in order to do that hang. Like,
absolutely.
I used to have a finger hold thing back when I was an operations officer in the SEAL teams. And being an operations officer, you have people coming to your office all the time. Like, hey, I've got this fire for you to put out. I've got this fire for you to put out. And I put this finger hold thing above my door. And if somebody wanted to talk to me, they had to hang. And the whole time, that's the only time they could talk. And if they could hang for a minute, they could talk to me for a minute. If they could hang for 30 seconds, then. But I tell you what, I had fewer people coming to talk to me. They figured out a way to put out their fires on their own. But those who did, they hung and they got stronger. So
that is a great idea. Oh my gosh,
we should have that.
I know there was a medical doctor who is, I can't quote him at the moment, but I know that he had people. He was a shoulder surgeon, had people hanging from a pull-up bar to help with strengthening the connective tissue around the shoulders. And when people struggled with it, when they were crossfitting, let's say, and trying to push press, this is a big thing. People try to push press a ton of weight over their head, but they don't have the overhead mobility. And then they arch their lower back, right? Yep. And so it's like this lose-lose. And like, just hang from the pull-up bar for 3 minutes a day, right? Just not all at once, but like do it in increments and start to build that mobility. And once you get the mobility, then you can start pushing a lot of weight overhead, but for your capacity, but like don't try to force a range of motion you don't have. You got to work into it.
Right.
So that's also something that a way to get unplanned movement is just get gentle stretches in, you know, literally.
For sure.
I'm going to do a Tabata after this, but
I know.
I'm going to do a core strengthening Tabata. That's what I'm going to do. I just haven't done. I didn't do core yesterday. I got to the gym and had a good one, but like I didn't get the core because I had something else coming up that I couldn't put the core in. But I could do a 7-minute Tabata, like 4 different exercises over that 7-minute duration. Yeah,
you got to film it too. Of
And
course.
you
You know what?
The
Fuck it.
show didn't
I'll time
happen.
lapse it.
Just
I'll
kidding.
time lapse
There
it.
you go.
Post
Yes.
it. There you go.
And I have some fun too. Like last week, Theresa was doing she had the Moby song, what is it? Bring
I love
Sally
that
up,
song.
bring
Yep,
Sally
Sally
down.
up.
And like
Yes.
every single time that you heard something about Sally up, you lifted your hips. And then when they said Sally down, you put your hips down,
Yes.
incorporating that fun into the movement too. Maybe like, what is it? Temptation bundling, going out
Yes.
and listening to that 80s music while you jam. Take on Me by who's saying Take on Me? Is that Aha? Anyway, I'm dating myself, my knowledge of 80s music or lack thereof. So anyway, well, T, I think this is a great bunch of information you've imparted, for me and Will, and for our community who's tuning in, both live and who tune into the podcast later. How can people find you? I know we've talked about that in the past, but maybe they're brand new listeners. We've got a comment over here that says, "What's up, guys? A friend of ours, Michelle, turned me on to your podcast. We love it." So, hey, maybe they're brand new and this is the first one they've heard. So, hey, how do they find you?
Yes. Well, don't come to where I live. I live in Colorado, but you can find my company at movement-rx.com. I get to work with John and Will in the work we do. So we are a human performance-based company, but you can also find me on LinkedIn. That's where I do a lot of my sharing of information. So check us out. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you learned today. And if you have any struggles that come up, ask. We're here to help.
Yep, for sure. For sure.
There you go.
This person that commented, their name is Synthetic Person. So I don't even know if you're real. Just saying, like, you might want to change that
Touche.
username.
Hopefully Synthetic Person is real and is getting some movement.
Exactly. No, the
Thanks,
digital
Syn-
exercising.
Thank you, Synthetic Person, for tuning in. We appreciate it. And now
You
we're
guys are
bashing
the
you. That's terrible.
No, we're not. It's okay.
Hey, comment on our show. We might bash you.
Yeah, I know. But it's like Synthetic Person. I'm like, are you real? Like, literally, are you
Some
real?
AI. That might be some AI right
No,
there.
it's a bot.
Oh my gosh.
All right. So, hey, T, been such a pleasure having you here. I know we're going to wrap it up here with a closing practice. But, for our audience, for our community, thank you for tuning in live, for tuning in the podcast later, for your comments in the comments section on all the different social medias. And if you're not following us on social media, please give us a like, subscribe, follow us. We're going to be doing some big changes in the coming months. I'm not going to mention exactly what those changes are, but just so you know, there's some big changes coming with the show, both video and audio, and we're very excited about that. So that all said, let's jump into this closing practice. So I'll lead it. Go ahead.
Why don't we do 10 squats?
Oh, I love it.
Or something
Yeah,
for
there you
closing,
go.
right? Or why don't we have Dr. T lead us in something, right?
Okay.
What the hell?
Oh, what the
let's
hell?
do-
Exactly.
yeah,
let's do it.
Let's add the squat with the breath. So
Okay.
why
Yeah.
don't we do 5 really good squats with the breath, and I'll teach you as we go, okay?
Okay.
So everybody stand up. And so let's go at the shoulder. Sorry, you only see part of me here. Okay. So you put your feet shoulder width apart. Screw your feet into the ground like they're on dinner plates so your arches are active. You probably feel your butt squeeze a little bit. Now, think about taking a nice deep breath into your belly and then your chest. And I want you to hold that breath, okay? And squat down, driving your knees out. Hold that breath. Okay, squat down, hold that bottom position for a sec. Keep holding that breath. And then slowly breathe out as you come up, like you're shushing a baby. Pause at the top. Breathe into that belly and lower back and that chest. I like to breathe low to high. Think of low to high. Squat down nice and low. Okay, hold your breath at the bottom for a moment. See how that feels. Get a little uncomfortable. And then shush the baby as you come up. Good. Get all the breath out. Good. Breathe in again. Belly, chest. Squat down. Hold that bottom position. Really feel those glutes fire. Drive your knees out to feel that side butt. Slowly come up. Breathe out. I believe that's 3. Let's do it again.
so.
Oh, yeah. Go down. Breathe in. Squat down. Hold that bottom position. Shift your weight from right to left. Hold that breath, breathe out, come back up. And one more time, breathe in, belly to chest, drive your hips back and your knees out. Hold that bottom position, shift your weight right to left, smile, and then slowly breathe out. Woo!
I'm
There you
smoked.
go.
There you go.
Man, that'll get you active.
I got a sweat going.
Five squats. Let's
There
just
you go.
doing it with the breath can make a huge difference.
You know, Dr. T, I was going to say one of the worst things when we work together that you have me do is the 5 seconds down, 5 second hold,
God.
5 seconds up. And I'm always dreading it. So when you said we're going to do the squats, I'm like, oh, shit. Here we go.
I love seeing John sweat, I should say, with the pause. I do pause squats. I make him pause for like 5 or 10 seconds at the bottom in front of like hundreds of people.
That's right. Again, T, thanks so much for being here with us today. It's always a pleasure and it's always a ball. Like I think the three of us always love to have fun. So thanks for bearing with us with our crazy senses of humor. Thanks for joining us. And Will, I'll turn it over to you to wrap it up, brother.
Yeah. Hey, Dr. T, great having you on this show. Third time. I think you're the only third-time person we have on the show.
Wow,
so
I feel very
there you go.
special.
You get a gold star for that. And thank you for sharing your wisdom today. And everyone out there listening, like, you know, what movement can you do today, right now, after listening to this show, and then maybe repeat that tomorrow, right? And report back to us. Let us know how it's going. Special thanks once again to our sponsor, our forever MTM sponsor at Karambit.com. That's KARAMBIT.com. And I think that's everything, guys. And if you want to become a sponsor on the show, head to mentalkingmindfulness.com. We really appreciate all of you listening, all of you out there helping to grow our community, and because we could all live more mindfully, more peacefully, with definitely some more movement as we're learning today.
Amen.
And we can all have more of a kick-ass life by doing all of these things. So thanks for sharing, and thanks for being out there, everybody.
All right, everyone, take care.
Thanks, John.
Peace, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you walk away with some new tools and insights to guide you on your life journey. New episodes are being published every week, so please join us again for some meaningful discussion. For more information, please check out mentalkingmindfulness.com.